I know Professor Lutabingwa has covered all of these aspects already, but I just want to start all over again just to take you through what budgeting is all about and but for this session, I will just be sharing some tricks around budgeting. So like I said in the class, it starts from these first 4 R's, which is you review, you research, you organize your budget, and try to always understand what the budget requirement is from the funder's perspective. Every funder has a template in which they want you to present your budget, and it is not something that you cannot ask for. You can ask them for it. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you cannot ask a funder for it. Always ask. In fact, it is very legal for you to send them an email or call them and tell them that, do you have a budget template, or do you have an instruction for how the budget should be? Always ask for that. Also, one very important information on your budget instruction that the grants or the funding organization will give you is the amount that we usually call it cap and floor. What the floor is that this is the minimum amount that you can ask for. What the cap is this is the highest amount you can ask for. So for the US consulate in Nigeria, they'll tell you that for our small grants, the cap is $10,000 and the floor is $5,000. So it means that when you're writing that grant, you cannot request for less than $5,000, and you should not request for more than $10,000. So in no circumstances should you find yourself asking for $11,000 when they've told you to apply for $10,000. However, according to Professor Jessel Tabingwa, if you've watched that part of the class, he said you should always try to claim all the money on the table. So you can apply for $999, but do not let it exceed $10,000. And the reason for that is that, just like us, funding organizations are just like us. When you go to the market, you have a budget and you have an amount that you want to spend on a particular good and goods or services. And no matter how compelling it might be, you will not go beyond that budget, because that is all that you can afford for that particular product. So, and funding organizations have a lot of people submitting to them, so they don't have time to start negotiating with you. So they'll probably just drop the proposal somewhere. And that's why some of the proposals you might have submitted may not have worked out. But in a lot of situations, they also try to call you and try to negotiate. And that is why it's very important that you always break down your budget. I would like everyone else to mute us. So this is why it is very, very important that so this is why it is very important that you ensure that you understand what the funder wants and do your research and review all the information they've given you to be sure that you've listed or you've put your budget in the right format and you've included all the components and the right amounts they want you to include. The other one that he also explained is the developing and documenting your budget. I really won't go through this again. I knew that I did a good job in it. As development experts and as future grant writing experts, one thing I would emphasize here is that you must learn how to use Microsoft Excel or maybe Google Sheets or any of those kind of tools. There are more advanced ones like R, but I would suggest that you spend some time. It's something that you can even teach. It's something that you can even teach yourself. So you can teach yourself how to use Microsoft Excel. You can teach yourself how to use Google Sheets. They are not hard. So it is very important that you invest in learning how to use Excel. I can come back to this during the Q&A session if you still have any other question on this slide. For the stage 3, get other people to review your your budget for you. Ensure that there are no mathematical errors. And if you're doing dollar conversion, be sure to note the conversion rate that you've used in your proposal. So, and also, another trick about dollar conversion is that when you are converting dollar, and this is not to teach you something bad, but always put $5 just on top of it, because we live in a place where currency changes, right? So you want to put an amount, maybe just like $5 to buffer, just in case anything happens. So if the current exchange rate is 360, you can use 365. However, that is still subject to the information supplied by your funding organization. A lot of funders from outside of the country always specify the exchange rate that they want you to use. Like the US Embassy in Nigeria has a specific exchange rate per time that they want you to use. So you should find that out. And that's that's also part of what Jesse was trying to say in this slide as regards using the funder's perspective. So ensure that there are no mistakes or number error, because your reviewers will not see it as a mistake, but they will see it as you trying to dupe them, or you're trying to be dubious. Now, budget justification, I would show you practically shortly. Jesse must have explained this. This is basically like this is like more or less narrating your budget in words. So, and explaining why that amount for each part of your budget. Now, it's something you can do as part of the same Excel sheet, or you can just create another Word document where you will say budget line item 1, then you will explain why that amount, and what you want that amount to, what you want to use that amount for. So just let me change my screen shortly to show you a sample budget. Just 1 second. So as I was saying, I don't know if you can see my screen. I've just opened a new Excel sheet, and okay, I think I might have to show my entire screen. The Excel sheet does not seem to be opening. Yeah, I think I'll have to share my entire screen for that to open. So this is the one you're familiar with, that was already used in class by Professor Lutobingwa. And so this is a pre-formatted budget template, and we've sent this to you on Canvas. It's under additional resources, or maybe under the module that talked about budgeting. And this is how your budget should appear. Now, if you watch the video very well, you understand what it means to allot 20% of an annual salary to each project officer. Basically, or 10% or 15%. Basically, you don't expect that person to be working on this particular project alone. So you want to just pay them for the amount of time that they will be working on. But the reason why I'm showing you this slide is to show you what is called cost sharing and ways in which you can manage that. Also, Jesse has taught this already in class. I'm just re-emphasizing. Now, cost sharing is what a lot of funding partners or funding organizations always look at. Basically, it's just a way of saying that before we can support you, we want to see that you've supported yourself, or we want to see that you're also willing to put some things down into this project. Now, the caveat is this: it does not necessarily have to be money, but you must represent it on your budget as money. And I will explain that shortly. It does not have to be money, but you can represent it on your budget as money. Cost sharing is basically just signaling that I am sharing a part of the cost of this project. So I will use this first template as an example. You will see grants. Grant is, I can as well change this to maybe US Embassy, or let's say USA. So I'm saying that I'm asking for this amount from USA, and I am upstate, or let me change this to maybe Zozo. So I'm Zozo. So, and as Zozo, I'm donating this. Now, like I said, it does not have to be that you have the money. This is the part of the class that I wanted to put into context for you. So it's basically just like something you can get that you don't need to pay for can be represented as part of your cost share. So for instance, if I'm looking at this budget now, if there is something like you have an office space, for instance. Yeah, so like this one, you have an office space, for instance, and it is your office space. You don't pay anyone for it. When you're writing your grant, it is important that you are accountable enough to include the cost of that office space in your budget. Now, when we talk about accountability, it is actually not for the funding organization. It is actually for you, because we often shoot ourselves in the legs because we don't pay attention to all the things that we spend that we did not pay for, like your time, your energy, the cost of your volunteers, the time of your volunteers, your office space, your electricity. All of those things are meant to be factored into your grant budget, and those are the costs that you're sharing. So at the end of the day, you'll be thinking, I don't have any money to match as a cost share. But the truth of the matter is that you actually have a whole lot more. I've written budgets where I'm contributing more than the money I was asking for. Why? Because I realized that I'm going to be putting a lot of time into the work. And if I'm implementing the project at 20% of my current salary, then it's a lot of money. Also, the meeting, so maybe I should just do it this way. Let's use the example of a meeting space, which is this one. So you have your space already. If you are to give your space out to rent out to someone else, how much would you have charged? Or let's say you don't even have the meeting space. If you just happen to know someone that is happy to give you their space for free, then you should ask them, well, how much does this space cost? So if they tell you that the space costs 100, it costs $1,000 for a day, or it costs $1,000 for the entire duration of your program, then it doesn't mean that you will remove that entire part out of your budget. What you would do is that you will come and put that part under your own contribution in your budget. Then you can say 0. this is because you're the one contributing it. So like, and if you remember in the introductory part of this course, I mentioned something that they are not doing you a favor. This is like a contract, right? So your grant writing is basically like you're a contractor and you're implementing a project for the you're implementing a project for the funding organization. So make them pay for every bit of everything that you're going to be spending. And you can only make them pay if you're being accountable. So, so, so that in terms of accountability, so you can put that money that you've gotten for free into this. It is your social capital that you're spending, which is also depleting. But that's another topic. Because when you ask me, oh, can I use your space for free? And I said yes today. You cannot come to me next week and say, can I use your space for free again? The more you use the relationship that we have, the more your social capital depletes, right? So it's more or less like you're also spending money. So the value of your social capital is the same as you spending money. So it's important that you account for that. The same thing goes for your volunteers. I always account for volunteers. So you can say, oh, volunteer hour is maybe 500 per hour. My organization uses 500 per hour. So we calculate stipend for those volunteers. And then we put it as part of the cost that we are sharing. It's not like we are going to end up paying those volunteers, but it is our social capital and their time should be accounted for. So that is how you cost share. I'm happy to answer more questions about it. In cases where they are looking for evidences, maybe the funder will ask you to submit a receipt. If you come to someone and the person says, I'm going to give you your office for free, you can go to another length to ask the person, can you give me an invoice or a receipt that shows that you gave us this place for free? So the person can give you a receipt that says this place costs 100,000, but we've given you 100% discount, which means you're not paying for it. So always don't eradicate what you're not paying for from your budget. The fact that you're not paying for it in terms of money does not mean it does not still have that monetary value. So even if you will be working on the project for free, still put it as part of cost sharing. So a lot of funders expect you to cost share about at least 10 to 15% of the project total budget. And that is how you will raise it without having any money. So I hope that is helpful. One more stop, I will show you one other project grant proposal, then I can move on to the next topic. Just 1 second. I opened. Okay, so this is a real life project proposal for a project I was trying to work on. So as you can see, real life. Now your budget, this template was given by the funder. Like I said, when I started, for those that just joined us, always ask them if they have a budget template. Always ask them. Always ask them if they have a budget template. So the funder gave me those budget templates. So that's why it's really fancy. You can see cost share or in-kind support here. So you would see camp venue. Because it is my office. Now, if you're a wicked person, which you can still be, you can still collect money for your space. You don't have to give them the space for free. So like this, we're going to be using our office for this boot camp. So I told the funder that, you know what, give me $60 per day for 10 days. Then I'll give you 40. I'll add $40 to it, because I pay rent on that space, right? And it should be paid for. So I am only donating $40 out of what my space will cost per day, despite I have the space for free and it's my own. So This is how you can, through grant funding, get money to cover your overhead cost and pay your staff by being very accountable. So honorarium for external speakers. So I already know that. So I want 5 speakers, or I can't remember how I did this. It's meant to be 5 external speakers. So at 5, you can see how detailed it is. Honorarium for 5 external facilitators and solar engineering coaches are $200 per facilitator for program duration. So I want 5 of them. So I'm asking, because I know that I will also be facilitating, so I want 4 externals and 4 facilitators, or maybe I'm bringing one of my friends that I don't have to pay to come and facilitate as well. So I'm telling them to pay for 4, while I'm cost sharing the cost of that one friend of mine that would be coming to facilitate for free. So this is basically what it is. So I would be happy to answer questions. You can drop your questions in the chat box as we go on. So I'll be happy to answer questions on these topics. Just when I'm done with the presentation. So let's go back to our slide. I want to rush through all of this so that we can have enough time for Q&A. So let's talk about the logic framework. The logic framework is very important when it comes to grant writing and even managing your nonprofit or implementing your program. It is just a logical arrangement that shows a sequential flow of how each stages of your program implementation translates to the other. It is actually a very important tool for monitoring and evaluation, and especially for also collecting data and really assessing the impact of the work that you're trying to do. So we've also mentioned this in the core course. Professor Tabingwa went through all of this to explain what the logic framework does. So I will not be doing that in this session. In this session, I just want to show you like an example of a logic framework and how it works. So this is a format of the logic framework, and I like this one because it starts from the goal in mind, which is the end impact in mind. So it's basically a list of, this is the goal that we want to achieve. This is the outcomes that we expect to achieve. This is the outputs, and this is the activities. Now, a normal logic framework starts from inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and goals. But this one, I chose to use this one first because as grant writers, it's very important that you have the end in mind. So what would determine your activities and the inputs that you will need would be the goal that you want to achieve at the end of the day. So whenever I want to write a grant, for instance, what I do is that I close my eyes and picture what I want that project to be or to look like. So I'm planning a conference, for instance. I picture how glorious or how glamorous I want that conference to look like. Then I will now begin to connect the dots backwards. So it means that the quality that I want is what would determine the kind of inputs and activities that I would do, or the kind of inputs I will seek. So I want a very high level conference that will attract the major politicians across the country. Then because I have that goal in mind, that goal would dictate to me or necessitate that I go ahead and look for a very, very good venue. So You understand? So the goal is choosing the input for me. I'll know that, oh, it's important that I bring a lot of good facilitators and speakers. I'll know that, oh, it's important to fortify the place with security. So that is why I chose this type of logic framework, because of the fact that it starts from the end. But this is what a typical logic framework should look like. So logic framework, basically, it's just a logical, realistic, reasonable way of, of, of in which a project should flow. If there is a disjoint in any of this flow, then the project may not be successful. So this is the situation that we want to solve. This is our organization's priority. Then we will look for all the inputs that we need. Then that input, we will mix it together as activities. And these are the things that our outputs are. These are like the people that will participate in it and what we will do, basically, the activities. Or we'll do a workshop, we'll do meetings, we'll have partnerships with people and all. Now, outcomes are divided into two, or some people will say three. Basic outcomes are what you expect to see at the end of your activities. So the immediate or short-term outcome is what people will begin to exhibit immediately after your intervention. The medium parts of the medium or intermediate outcomes are more or less behavioral change and 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 in terms of people's thinking, while the end result, which is the late one, which often what we usually call impact, is a permanent change or a result or something that has happened as a result of your intervention. Now, I really love to use this to explain monitoring and evaluation, and I hope you will understand what I'm just trying to say by doing that. So what monitoring is, when we say M&E, what monitoring is basically that your monitoring officer would see that these are the situations we want to change, and then the role of the monitoring officer would be to check if you have all the right inputs to cause this change. When the monitoring officer ascertains that, then the monitoring officer will go ahead and say, okay, let's carry out the activities. The monitoring officer will be looking at all the activities as you're doing it to ensure that you're doing it correctly and to ensure that those activities would indeed translate to the outcome that you're looking for. So I'll use a training, for example, which is this logic framework is actually for a training program. So we want to train people on how to become good fundraisers, right? So what do we need? We need staff, volunteers, money, we need research, we need all of these things. So as a monitoring officer, the role of the monitoring person is to first ensure that you have all the inputs that you need to be able to carry out the activities effectively. Then when you begin to carry out the activities effectively and you begin to attract, you begin to bring people that you want to train together, the role of our monitoring officer is to ensure that the activities are well done and we've selected the right type of participants. So when people apply for our training program, the monitoring officer looks at their name and be like, okay, this person will be good for the training, this person will not be good for the training. So that is monitoring, that's selection process, right? So, but after they ensure that all of these are good, then the monitoring officer now begins to look at the short term. So as people are finishing the training, have they learned? And how do you measure learning? You can measure learning through by asking them, oh, do you know what you did not know before? A very popular way of measuring learning is actually the pre and post test approach. You give them a pre-test before you train them, and then you give them a post-test after you train them. That way you will know if things have changed. Also, a way at social networks in which we measure learning is by reflection. And that is why throughout this course, every module that you take will tell you to write a reflection on what you learned in the previous module. And at this junction, let me say that M&E is not meant to be an afterthought. It is something that you build into your program design from the scratch. So when we're designing our grant writing course, we had built the reflections into the course. When we do it on site, when we usually do the grant writing course over 4 days. So every morning and evening, when participants have come and learned for 6 hours, when they are leaving, we'll tell them, what have you learned today? When they come back the next morning, we'll ask them, when you went back home and you reflected on what you learned yesterday, what is changing about you, or what are the new things you've learned, or what do you appreciate about yesterday? So that helps us to measure if they are learning, which is our short-term goal. And the medium term or intermediate term, like I said earlier, it's basically behavioral changes. Or are people now more confident about writing grants? Now you realize that we've not even talked about the fact that you've won grants yet. That is impact, that is long term. The medium term for us is, have you started writing grants? As the quality of the grants that you're writing better than before? Those are behavioral changes. So it will now take us a longer term to be able to measure if you've been able to win a grant or not. So funders understand the fact that it takes time to measure this impact. So don't be naive to say we are going to see results within the next 6 months. They will know that you don't know what you're saying. It usually takes 1 year, 2 years for you to see a long-term impact. So, but as you're writing your grant, it's okay for you to be able to say, these are the immediate outcomes that we are going to see, and these are the intermediate outcomes that we are going to see, and these are the long-term outcome over a period of maybe 1 year or 2 years through continuous monitoring and evaluation. So with that said, I would open it up for question and answers. So the way this would work would be, you can raise up your hand, I call you, or you can use the chat box. Then I would answer your question. The chat box might be good if you don't have good internet. So I can always read the questions out and then answer. So I will start from, I've gotten 2 questions from the chat already. And one person is asking, so the first question is from Benedict. He said, getting funders' attention to fund your organization project, what should be the best picture of organization team to work on in order to attract funders' interest in funding the project? What should be the best picture of organization? I don't want to just assume, but Benedict, if you can explain what you mean by picture of organization, I really appreciate, so that I can properly answer that question. For Daniel, I don't want to assume so that I don't waste your time. So if you can be clear about what you mean by picture of organization, I'll be glad. We have used a number of worksheets as templates in this course. I want to ask, when writing your grants, are the various sessions expected to be in tables, as we have seen in the worksheet, or basically in paragraphs? So this is a very good question, Daniel. It is not going to be in tables. It is not going to be in tables. I can't see anybody that's waiting to get accepted though. And Gold, I'm making you a co-host so you can help me accept people, but I can't see anybody in the waiting room. So So it is meant to be in paragraphs. In fact, grant writing is the most boring thing to write because you cannot use pictures, you cannot use graphics. It's basically like an academic term sheet. And let me see if I can get a sample grant proposal on my system that I can show you so that you will see it. It's basically like just a paper. You cannot use tables and illustrations. The only time that you can use table is probably if you want to include your logic framework and you want to list out how you're going to measure your the metrics of that you want to measure, or you just want to list out these are the things I'm going to measure and this is when I'm going to measure it, that kind of thing. You can use a table for it. I've seen a couple of people also use tables for their activities, but it's usually not clear. Try to be detailed about the activities and just write it out. Of course, your budget cannot be, apart from your budget justification, your budget cannot be in words. So you are to put your budget on an Excel sheet. And I'll answer Waid's question, then I'll go and show you a sample grant proposal. In Module 4, under evaluation plan, for the questions which should be answered, is it to be written in future tense, e.g., was the project successful? How do we answer that? Okay, so those questions basically are not meant to be answered like that. Those questions that we've listed in the course is just to guide you to know what is expected of you in terms of what you want to measure answer with evaluation. Like I've explained today about monitoring and evaluation, basically it is just for your own use to be sure that your inputs are transforming to activities, your activities are transforming into impact. So for when you write a grant, you usually don't have to particularly answer those questions verbatim. They are just to guide you to be able to communicate to the funder that what you would be measuring and how you want to justify that your intervention works. So the M&E part of a grant proposal is basically a way of telling the funder that when I do this thing, this is how I will know that my intervention or my program is achieving its goal or it's working. So let me show you. We've uploaded the logic framework on Canva already. You can see it under the M&E module, but I'm happy to also send it to you guys again if you don't have it. Just 1 second. I'm trying to. Okay, my system is currently okay. So you can keep dropping your questions while I look for a sample grant proposal to share with you. Oh, okay. The first one I displayed. Okay, I'm gonna send that to you. I'm gonna send that. I will ask that we upload that on Canvas. 1 second. I did not know that I did not bring any. Did not bring any proposal here. Okay, I found one. I would beg that we don't share screen. I'm not meant to share this, but that's the only one I can find right now. So this is a sample grant proposal. This is a sample grant proposal. So it has, just as you know, it has an executive summary. It has location of the project. This is a very generic and general grant proposal, but mind you, a lot of funders give you prompts. They give you questions they want you to answer, and different funders have their templates. So I'll still say that again, always ask them if they have templates. If they don't have templates to send to you, or they don't have a form or a question already, then you can always send them something like this. So executive summary, the executive summary includes the project's goal and the location of the project, beneficiaries, really just well detailed. Just as we have taught you, your objectives should look like this. Empower 200 young leaders with skills and knowledge for impact, knowledge and impact analysis and design thinking, blah, 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 blah. Basically, connect 20 young leaders to accomplished mentors in their field. You realize it's answering all the 5 W's and H, the why, so the why, the when, the how, the when. You see, what we want to do is connect 20 young leaders to accomplished mentors in their field for guidance and professional development needed to sustain and scale their social interventions by when? August 2019. Promotes, so always, does not necessarily have to start with 2, always start with an action word, like Professor Jesse told you guys. Promotes collaboration between 200 young civic leaders towards providing solutions to some of the most critical challenges facing the country by 2019. So it should answer all of those questions. Should start with an action word. Activities. So instead of a table, we want you to be as detailed but as succinct as possible when you're writing your activities. Be as detailed and as succinct as possible when writing your activities. So this is activities, stage 1. Stage 1 will do this, blah, 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 blah. This is how we are going to select people for stage 1. These are core topics and activities, facilitators, structure, final day, be as detailed as possible. Like Jesse said in the videos, that write the grant as though you're going to die, so that when any other person picks it up, they are able to do it without you being there. But it has to also be concise. So stage 2, selection, structure, activities. And these are not cast on stones, or this is not a template. This is just what I created for this particular grant, like a way to pass across my idea effectively. So it can be your topics, your subtopics can be different. You can write it in your own different formats, depending on the kind of project you're trying to do. And 6, this is my outcome statement, that by doing this project, 2,200 young leaders will have mastered this, 200 young leaders would have developed this, 2,000 young leaders will have done that. So basically, just a remodeled objective statement to make it sound like what would have happened as a result of your intervention. And can you see that I separated my outcomes from my impacts? Impact is long term. And this might be hard for me to measure immediately. So you will see that my outcomes are December 2019, December 2019, December 2019, August 2019. While impact, I said evidences of a stronger democracy in project communities would be noticeable. I don't know how I was writing this in English when I was writing it anyways, but it still got a $20,000 grant at the end of the day. So it worked. So so evidences of a stronger democracy in project communities will be noticeable by December 2020 as a result of increased knowledge driven, blah, 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 blah. By December 2020, there will be noticeable evidences of economic growth as a result of increased sustainable and profitable social enterprises, blah, blah, blah. So basically, just impact are always at the policy level, So sustainability plans, indicators of success, this is how we expect that we are successful. As again, this is immediate. April 2019, this will happen, this will happen. So we'll measure indicators by all of these. This is not particularly correct because I'm meant to actually put the percentage and or the number of the participants that would have achieved these indicators. And monitoring and evaluation, blah, 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 blah. So it now depends on your field that you're using. There are different M&E frameworks out there. So it's the burden is on you now to go and research the one that aligns to the sector in which you're working. For us in the education space, we usually use the Donald Kirkpatrick's approach, which evaluates our impact in 3 different stages: learning, behavioral changes, results, learning, behavioral changes, and results. So it lies on you to go and look for a monitoring and evaluation framework that works for you. So your organizational capacity statements too must be, this is a very old grant, I see. So your M&E, your organizational capacity statement should reflect the quality of the people on your team. This is where you want to talk about the badass people on your board, the quality of you yourself, and all of those kind of things. Okay, so let me take more questions. So Blessing said, no, Daniel, I'm sorry, I cannot send the grant proposal because they are proprietary documents. I'm so sorry. And this is a very old document. This was probably written sometime back in early 2018. So it's hard to share. I'm so sorry. But I just wanted to show you that it's not actually like really something hard to do. It's just basically putting all that you've learned so far together into a document. That's all. I think sending grant proposals this period is particularly different and maybe difficult since you don't get to meet physically with people and all the costs related to it will no longer be relevant. So how do you write a proposal now and get funded? Trainings, meetings, etc., blah, 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 blah. So I'm just curious about what the funders will be funding this period and how to make sense of them. This is a very good question. Thank you for asking, Blessing. There is always something to fund. So like I said, your time, you have to start placing a lot of value on your time as a professional, your skills as a professional as well. I recently got a grant during this COVID-19 period, and the grants will be doing something remotely. So it's all about the scope of what you it's all about you thinking outside of the box, really. There are a lot of things to fund. you can fund Zoom license, you can fund you can fund you can fund your own time that you're going to be spending sitting in front of a computer organizing those meetings. Another commonly increasing thing that I'm seeing right now is people buying data for the people they are trying to train. So if you're getting a grant proposal, then the grant proposal will come with cost of data for the people you're trying to train. So you make it compulsory for them to attend the training, then you can give them money for data. You can here where I live, whenever we do, so I'm part of a group of Obama Foundation scholars, and whenever we have Zoom meetings, they order and send food to our houses. So that covers that covers for the cost of feeding the participants, right? So it all depends on how you can think about it. But it's there is definitely always something to fund, and it starts from your expertise. It starts from the expertise of the people that are working with you as well. So in the right direction of the organization needs or problems as discussed in modules, hint us clearly what should be the community target of organization. Well, I am still okay. So anytime you think about problems and needs, always think about it in through the lenses of it has to be relevant to the local community, but it should also have a global significance. Why do you think everybody is not talking about rape when it is a major issue in Nigeria at the moment? But every funder is trying to fund COVID-19 projects. It is because the whole world is talking about COVID-19. So whatever the whole world is talking about, the whatever the whole world is talking about, funders are always flogging towards it. So that is why whatever what when you think about the problem, think about it that it has to be local, it has to be locally relevant, and it must have a global significance. It has to be locally relevant and must have a global significance. It is very, very important. So does it align with the SDGs? Does it align with the development indices in the development sector? Does it align with the current struggles and challenges in the world? So those are some vital questions that you should have answered as you think about about the problem. So on what its question on writing on how to evaluate our project during the external evaluation, do we need to invite an external body to do that for us aside the funders who will be giving back? Yes. So ideally, cost of monitoring and evaluation should be a part of your of your of your M&E plan. Should be a part of your budget. Actually, you should budget for it. You should budget for it. You should budget for M&E. You guys can hear me, right? So I will have shown you some examples of budgets, but most of the grants I have on this laptop are clients' work, and I have a non-disclosure agreement not to share them. And but whenever you write a budget, you should include a budget for M&E. It's very, very important. It also shows the funder that you know what you're doing. So you can always get an external M&E person to come and do your M&E for you, because it has expertise, although they are usually very expensive. So if you can't afford it, that is why we use internal evaluation. But the gold standard is for you to get an external evaluation M&E expert to come and to be a part of the project from beginning. Like I said earlier, M&E is not an afterthought. It is something that you build into into your project from the beginning. So you have to bring an M&E person on board and you have to pay them. They're typically expensive. Like I tell people, anybody that's thinking about a career in international development, invest in M&E, invest in acquiring monitor a certification in monitoring and evaluation. You'll be hot cake because not so many people have the skill. And a lot of people that claim to have the skills are not as good as they think. So, and a lot of people also have localized knowledge about M&E. Like for instance, I know M&E when it comes to education. I know how to evaluate educational impact and all of those things, but I'm not so sure about healthcare, agriculture, and all of those other fields. So if you can invest in getting a certification in M&E, then that's good. However, the basic thing about M&E is to answer all of those questions that we've listed. And monitoring is basically ensuring that there is a logical, realistic flow in your logic framework, ensuring that inputs translates to impact and to activities, activities translates to outcome, outcome translates to impact, basically. So if you don't have the money to bring in an external evaluator for now, use your internal evaluation. It is equally valid. But as you grow your organization further and begin to attract a lot of high-end funders, they would expect you to have an external M&E person on board. I think that's the last question. So are there any other questions? Any other question? Okay. So if there is no other question, I think we've spent about 1 hour. So I think we can call it a day right here. Oh, Blessing, I answered the question already. I will send a link to this call. Maybe you can get the answers there. But let me just quickly paraphrase what I said earlier. So what I said was that there is a lot to ask for during this period. One is the cost of your time as an expert that will be implementing the project, or every other person that will be implementing the project. It's still if you're paying someone for managing a program as a program officer, the person will still sit in front of a computer and manage the projects. The person will still get paid and all of those things. So those will be added to your cost. The cost of the technology you'll be using is also key. If you're training 300 people on Zoom, then you need to have a Zoom license. So you can put the cost of your Zoom license to it. It also depends on the kind of project, really. If you're a direct aid kind of person and you're trying to provide food for people, then you have to collect money to buy the food, right? But if you're a training kind of person, then the cost of bringing facilitators online to come and train people should be included. The cost of your own time for managing the project should be included. And one thing I said was that one thing I'm seeing, a trend I'm seeing in this period, is people putting it as part of their grant proposal to buy data for the people that will be attending the training. So if this is a 3-day or 4-day training, then I can say, 100 people that will be attended would be given 3,000 naira each for data to so that they will not have any excuse than to attend the training. Also, I'm attending a series of webinars where every day when we have webinars, they order food to be delivered to our house. So that way, I'm sure they've written a grant, and in their grants, before the grant was written before COVID-19, and they already have a budget to feed people. So they just converted that to ordering for food and sending it to our houses every day when we attend the webinar. So it all depends on you just rearranging your thought process to an online space. And if you really want to do it well, then you will be spending a lot of money, except you're using platforms like WhatsApp or Facebook Live and all of those things. But if you're using Zoom and you're hosting it for a lot of people, you'll have to buy a lot of things. And so just bringing your creativity into it. You can decide to order food to people's house. You can decide to give them data. You can even decide to, like, there is a project I'm currently writing up, and the project has to do with training people to design intervention for COVID-19 and supporting them with money to implement those projects. So those things are included in my proposal. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I think I must have answered it better initially. Um, um, so so module 5 and every other thing that you have to submit with a grant, with a draft of with a draft of your grant proposal, you have to submit them within the next 2 weeks before 27th of this month, I think. Oh, no, sorry, before 26th of this month. We gave you two weeks extension. So every I's and every T's that you need to dot and cross must be done within that period. Must be done within that period. Seeing the extension is, does that apply to the cost? Does the mark deduction also stand for all unsubmitted assignments? So, Shagun, I didn't quite get your question, but if I understand what you're trying to say, is that for all the assignments that you've missed to submit, then the point deduction still counts. However, I think we might just, this 2 weeks just gives you the opportunity to really submit your assignments. And remember that you have to get 80% to be issued a certificate. So if we realize that the reason why you're not getting 80% is because of deduction based on late submission, we can waive that for you. We can waive that for you. But if not, then you won't be getting a certificate. Ideally, yeah, you're meant to, it's usually optional. If you write a draft proposal, you can upload it and we'll review for you and tell you where to improve. So it's just an optional thing. It's not compulsory for everybody. It's not compulsory for everybody. So before the formal ending of the course, if you have a question, you can always use the message box and send us a message. Also, we sent you a Facebook group page where other course takers are, and you can join the course. You can, as you're exiting from Canvas, you can join the Facebook page. We'll send you another email that has that Facebook closed group as well. So on that platform, we usually do live events. You can also raise questions, and a lot of other experienced grant writers are on the platform and they'll be able to answer you. People that have taken the course and won a lot of grants are on the platform and they'll be able to help you out. So you can always join. You can always join that Facebook group. We will identify you as a Zozo Networks alumni after this course. So you have all the privileges that comes with that, with access to free trainings, and you can pitch for our alumni grants and all of those kind of benefits. Okay, read one. As regards the discussion part, you must start 2 discussions on the discussion page, and you have to contribute to people's discussions. So just basically you telling us, it can be anything really, some exceptional things that you've learned on the platform during the course. It can be really anything. It does not even have to be something that you write yourself. It might just be a data or a statistics or a news from anywhere that is in line with your project or the grants training that you want other people to know. So that will give you your full mark for discussion.